You should know, I've been so excited about coming here for a number of reasons, and not just because of this. So the people at the Library of Congress, well, you know, I'm always reminded that you like the public, don't you? Oh, yes, you're a public librarian. Whoa. Uh, letting them in, touching things. Wow. I was the only one that knew what to do with the whole thing with people who might be there all day with no purpose. You know, it's like, it's all right, it's all right. You know, I saw him yesterday. In fact, I thought he came from Baltimore, you know. I thought I recognized him. You know, I probably did, okay? You're the person who has a somewhat suspicious mind about things, you know? It's like, well, what if this doesn't work? Or could other people be scholars? Don't we want to grow scholars? Because you have all this wonderful stuff, and what if you don't grow them and nobody will use it? Those children, they could come in. They could do things. So I said, I'm coming to see my peeps, right? And so they suspected it, I mean, really. So I get to, and Roswell Encina I brought him from Baltimore, so he knew. So Roswell is, you know, that. And Tyann Rogers, who works with me every day. So this is her first trip, right, to see in public. So I get to the curb here, and already I've got my bags, I'm coming in, and I'm coming in, and I said, okay, now let me show you how they move the information desk from the front, because Shaban had told me all this stuff. And then let's go look at where they're doing the reconstruction, right? And the window, and isn't this cool where they're showing people, and where are the books, and all of that. And so we stood there, and then I'm showing them all this stuff. And then finally Tyann said, did you used to work here? I thought it was Baltimore, you know, what? And then they said, hey, Ta-Nehisi Coates is downstairs talking to teenagers. Right downstairs, that's why I was a little late. They're great conversations. He's downstairs with all these teenagers lined up, asking him about things. And he's telling them the truth. And he's saying, oh, there's Steve Bell, how you doing? I just love it, I just love it. And Lynn Wheeler and all that, Mary Haskell. And I'm punching Roswell in the back, saying, see, this is it. You can engage them. So this year has been very interesting. And what really helped me, one day I received, and I've been talking about the Library of Congress, the world's largest library, 164 million items, 30 million manuscript pages to be digitized and made available. 23 presidents, from George Washington to Calvin Coolidge. The world's largest, I got used to saying world's largest, right? And then you get into this kind of thing with other national libraries. Well, we have a copy of the Magna Carta. Oh, well, we have this, you know. So you get into that kind of thing, you know. The world's largest collection of baseball cards, comic books, all of these things. So I'm looking at, you know, doing it, and I said, well, what if we like have maybe some pop-up exhibits? That was the first thing. What do you mean? Well, in the city there's a Comic-Con convention, right? And you're gonna have all these young people at the convention center and everything. What if we brought out some of those comic books, the first edition of Superman, Batman, the first thing of the Luke Cage, of all this stuff down in the bowels, you know, under lock and key. What if we put it out? Okay. Suspicion. We had the Capitol Police. And then, and we lined it up, and we had it, and we had some historic things, you know, here's the first comic book, something like that. The young people, young and old, came in droves, with the costumes on. Great hall, everything. And then magic happened, because those curators, the librarians who have collected and cared for and conserved this stuff for years and knew the provenance of it and knew that, well, this is actually the comic book that Batman first appeared in, right? So these comic aficionados, this is like, whoa, okay, this is Batman #2. And they're all talking that the magic happened because they were interacting with people who appreciated these items, these things, and it was connecting to what was happening. So then I said, oh, okay. How about Pride, DC Pride? Because we have a collection of this. John Larson, the guy that did Rent, we have in his own handwriting on note paper for that song 525, his calculation. Well, let's bring it out, right? Let's let people see it. Young people were coming, and even the cast of Rent, the current cast of Rent, we invited them, they came. Lin-Manuel came to do research. He's working on some stuff. We're like, okay, let's show it for Halloween. So now we're on a roll, right? Because what is happening is this connection that everybody can be a scholar. What does scholarship mean? It means that you're curious, you're interested in things, you want to know, right? So anybody can be a scholar or that. So for Halloween, we brought out the Harry Houdini archive. I know, it's all, that happens almost every day. It's like, wow, ooh, gee, Harry Houdini, his private notebooks and his thing. Oh, okay, just, now I'm gonna just pander. Carl Sagan collection. With his, okay, he was 12. His drawings of spacemen and his imagining in space. Now connect that to a 10-year-old that is interested in stuff. Rosa Parks' collection in her hand, and all of this is in people's hand, you know, and she's wondering about and saying, if I write the truth, it was for her autobiography, would people be disappointed because my father left when I was 2, or this or that, you know, would they be able to take the truth? And I thought, when we digitized that, I said, I would have loved to have had that in Baltimore, on that corner, Branch Library, when that little girl looked out the window at that burning car where it was, and said, what's the matter? It would have been nice to go over to the computer and pull up this thing and talk about, there have been other times. So it's great to be here because you are really the boots on the ground. This is where it happens. And 2 weeks ago, I got a chance to meet with federal deposit libraries. And you know, some of you are those and everything. And they are really front line in terms of government information and being that, and we talked about that. And then I said, but what it really is in the communities. These are opportunity centers. I had a senator tell me, you know, public libraries are opportunity centers. This is where it all, this is, what are they doing? And it's been interesting because I've been almost like a person who's in the position talking about libraries in general. Do you know that in Philadelphia there is the Culinary Literacy Center? Yay! I even got the apron. No shame. Went back, culinary. I mean, this, have you all seen it? Oh, oh, it's the best. And then I went to Camden, New Jersey, and they not copied, but they used it because, as I try to explain to my new colleagues, libraries borrow from each other. Somebody's doing it good, we do it. So they have Books and Cooks. Camden, Books and Cooks, yes, thank you. And you should see when I come back from my trips. I got all my bags, and they're like doing it. I've had an opportunity to go to public libraries during this year, and it's been wonderful. Started out, of course, in San Francisco with the Teen Mix Center. If you haven't seen that, and there's a teen center here where young people designed it, and they also have state-of-the-art sound recording studios, all of these kinds of cool things. And one young man, they interviewed me. They had their own YouTube channel and everything. But he said, if we were to rent this type of studio for an hour, it would cost $200. And they have that type of thing. So I ran back fast as I could and said, we've been talking about a youth center at the Library of Congress. Yes. And what would it be and what it's like? Then Jackson, Mississippi. I was there for the Mississippi Book Festival, and they're really trying to get that started. And they have, and the librarian there, who's a real go-getter, Center for Autistic Children with Autism and adults. And the Senate, I was with a legislator who was so surprised to see this in a public library. And even, and they were having their book sale, and he went away with a bag of books too. I love that. But they also, of course, have developed an area where you can have food and a vending for the people who were there every day, and that. I was able to go back home to Illinois, and the Illinois Heartland library system, Rochester, Illinois, which is about 15 miles in the cornfield, literally, from Springfield. And they had their farmer's market there, another bag. But the police chief was there, all of these community people were there, and the legislator that was there with me was shocked in a way. It's like, oh, wow, it's like, yeah, this happens. This is, yes. And that the fact that the librarians were there in force, ready to vote, because what's happening is an awareness of the power of libraries in that instance and others. Then Darby, which is not far from here. I combined my trip for Philadelphia with the Darby Public Library. And there again, the connection with legislators, seeing it and seeing what the Library of Congress could possibly do in their districts. The Veterans History Project, the Oral History Project, will be sending out, and my intent is to make sure that the Library of Congress becomes a resource for communities. And so, from the live streaming of programs, and we've been trying that live from the library. So we've been experimenting with that, and I'm just a shameless plug. If you would like to participate, we have Cokie Roberts, all of these people, and we're testing it out to see if we could have, and it's working, the live streaming and interacting with audiences all over the country. So you have that. Traveling exhibits, 18-wheelers. The Library of Congress had this before, and so we're revitalizing it. We're one for the West Coast, Midwest, and East Coast. 18-wheelers that will pull up into communities, do whatever, and we're booking those and working on those. Also more digitizing of materials so you can download and do digital exhibits. Now, I must tell you, all of this came, and I know that this is Facebook Live, and Roswell Encina's cautioned me, he said, be careful, watch what you say, watch what you say. But I think I've said this before, so I think it's okay. I had to really consider leaving an environment where I knew what it meant to people. There was a moment during that unrest, that week of the unrest, on that corner of Penn and North, when we were the only thing there. And that community did not destroy that two-story glass window that people had warned us about. They said, why don't you board it up, when they knew things might get rough. And then we thought, well, what would that say? You know, you're going to board up the library. And then they said, well, you know they're going to probably deface the two-story mural that we had put up of a young girl reading. And they hadn't defaced it since we put it up, but at least cover that. No, we're not going to cover it. And to see young people in the community stand in front of that library to protect it, and then to go out on that corner and assure people that they could come in and do that. That's when I said, this matters. This is it. So what could I do, and what, at the Library of Congress, the world's largest, this preservation labs, Abraham Lincoln's copy that he took on the field of Gettysburg, of the Gettysburg Address, all of these treasures. But what could I do? Because yes, I am a public service librarian. I did go to school, I got a couple, whatever. But that's really what it is. That's why I left teaching library science, because when a student came back, and I was teaching in Pittsburgh, and the student came back and said, oh, I think I want to go in the PhD program. I was like, well, wow, you just left it. You just went to a library system, and you thought, and he said, yeah, well, they weren't as interested as you thought about my ideas, because I was sending them out, information is power, and you just go and you talk to your director, or you just do it and tell them, and he told me about his experience, and he got blown off. He said, well, maybe I need to go back. And I thought, oh, you need to put your money where your mouth is. That's when I went back to public libraries. But this opportunity because I was working and giving thoughts on what the Library of Congress could be. And what really helped me was when I was interviewed, and I tell people this is the ultimate interview with President Barack Obama. That's like, okay, this is, wow. However, what he said was, I have seen at the Library of Congress the contents of Abraham Lincoln's pockets the night he was assassinated. I have seen Thomas Jefferson's draft of the Declaration of Independence with footnotes by Benjamin Franklin, and he put BF, and John Adams, JA, right? I've seen this. I've seen in Frederick Douglass's hand his thoughts on the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. He said, but I think some of it is because of the position I'm in. And he said, what could you do as Librarian of Congress to make sure that everyone had that opportunity? And that's when I said, okay. And he said, would you serve as the Librarian of Congress? And that's been the motivator. So being with you, being with people who appreciate and know what it means to give that vital information, that vital space, to be in communities, to interact with people, and in their, sometimes their greatest need, or they're just to give out, you'll love this, Captain Underpants, the latest copy. National Book Festival, right? We've got David McCullough, we've got Condoleezza Rice, we've got, guess who the star was? 4 hours. The line, my colleagues were like, what is this? And he had the big, and he was so gracious, Mr. Pilkey. He waited, he left other, but it kind of freaked my Library of Congress colleagues out. Most of them had never heard of Captain Underpants. They had the big underpants thing for kids to take pictures with. And they're like, what is this? I said, yeah, that's getting them involved. Those are your future scholars on this floor, right? These are the kids, you know? Come on now. So, and that's what they're, so we're inviting him to the Library of Congress. He's going to be in there, and we're going to have kids lined up and doing that. But just to get them to see that there's a value, you're preserving, this is for Congress. And we have that special unit for Congress, and they really appreciate that. They also, and Siobhan mentioned this about this place for discussion and everything, the Library of Congress is becoming more of a safe place for discussion for Congress. And I think it's we have these congressional dialogues with noted authors, and they sit and they talk, and it's a safe zone. They can interact. It's nonpartisan. They interact with each other. And it's so wonderful because this safe place is the library. And they are getting that. We say the L word a lot. Oh, the library, that has become, and it's translating to, it's here in Washington, and it's when I go back home, and you do that. I also want to take this opportunity to thank you all. One congressional member, we were at one, I won't mention the state or the town or anything, but let's just say the librarians came out in force. And this gentleman was just shocked. He said, there's so many librarians. And several of them came up to him and, you know, shook his hand and reminded him about his district and this and that and community forums. But you should know that what I'm doing is really, and I talked to Meredith about it earlier from Library Journal, and I thank them for this, is what it has done as the first librarian in 60 years, the third, and you should always remember that those other two librarians, one was the head of the Boston Public Library, and the other one was the head of Cleveland Public Library. The other of the 14, all three have been public librarians. So I just sneak that in. But they have. And so what is happening is with my appointment, it has really drawn attention to the profession and what libraries do in general. And that's been my greatest honor, really, to be able to wear the librarian title proudly. I'm so glad that it's the Librarian of Congress. I get called Madam Librarian in Washington. They don't have to know my name. It's just Madam Librarian, you know. And you should be assured, members of Congress have librarians in their families. Oh, yeah. Oh, and it's so fun. You know, my mother was a librarian. My sister's a librarian. And then my favorite moment was when one congressperson asked to take a picture with me because his sister had our library, something from Library Journal about me, and he's taking a selfie with me. I said, yes, 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 she told him. That's a good thing. So know that your impact is even greater. People are looking to libraries even more and more. We are one head of cybersecurity person was on a thing, and he said, you know, libraries have a real special space now in terms of the trusted source. That, and if all types of libraries, special, academic, public, all work together, that's our lane. We are that part of the information ecosystem. And to claim that and be proud of that, but to know that we are also being looked at as that, even more so. Now, I'm going to open it up. I think I have a few types of questions with another part of my role. It's, so these precious resources, there are like 12 documents that they call national treasures. Not quite the Book of Secrets, but the national treasures. And people are always asking about that. It's so interesting. But these are that Gettysburg Address draft that he took on the field, the contest, the draft, Declaration of Independence, where they took out the section about slavery because they said it'd never get passed. That the draft that also just had John Hancock's name first without anybody else, and he looked at the thing and said, am I the only traitor? And that's the story behind getting everybody else's name. So all these things, so these are national treasures in this vault in some place that I cannot disclose, that I don't have the key to or know anything about. The combination, when you go in there, it's all, you got to put on coats because it's all freeze. And then the Capitol Police are notified, and you do this. So we're taking these special people down to see it, and we're bringing out the treasures. And one person, very highly placed, looked and said, well, how do you know this is real? Now, as an administrator, as you know, sometimes your job is to protect your staff from various people. I thought that the head curator would die. It's like, what about this vault and the police? You know, what? So I see this stricken look, and being from the public arena, we're able to translate, we're able to put things, you know, in ways. So I explained that, well, there's a special unit, sir, that called the preservation conservation, and they do the provenance, and they do that, and it's, you know, it's real. But the fact that someone would even ask that tells you where we are in terms of what's real, what's not, where did it come from. So I've started talking about that old term, information literacy, that we've been doing that. Trusted sources, how do you tell? What do you know? That this is also an opportunity. So I just thank you for letting me be here. Shaban is really, and I just want to please give her a hand, because they are doing it right. I didn't want you to get off the bike. I really didn't want you to get your bike. But Bruce Bannon, she sit next to him with Chicago and all of that. But I just thank you for the opportunity to get renewed by being with you and being here. Shaban's staff thought I was a tour guide, because I was telling them, and they have 600 people out there on the roof deck, you know, and all that, because I know. And it is invigorating for me, because this is what, and this is why I think we all have to work together. It's our time, so thank you for having me. So, now you can ask questions. I look at Steve and I think metadata, and we're working. Citizen historians. Oh, yeah.
This is really serious. Does Donald Trump have a library card?
I don't know, because it's interesting. The Library of Congress is the Library of Congress. So we're in the legislative branch. I've learned more about government, the federal government. The only people who can check out, and they really are members of Congress and their families. And that's kind of interesting. So we don't, and each of the departments, like the Department of Energy and all of those departments in the executive branch, they have their own libraries. So that was interesting to really, and people always ask, well, what's the difference between the Library of Congress and the National Archives? They're the official records. And he's collecting, my colleague David Ferriero is collecting tweets.
Ah.
Oh, that's okay.
It's not a very deep question, but
Oh, please, I'm not deep.
I love you. But also, besides loving you, the pictures of you with these kids at the Library of Congress, one, they're the best dressed kids, they're killer. Like, how are they selected? And I feel like
They
you've
select
got,
themselves. I'm glad you brought that up.
you get so much press from that. I'm thrilled with that. They are adorable.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to tell you about Adam. So I've been talking about the Library of Congress all over the place and saying it. This lady just the other day with her husband, and he looked very reluctant. But she said, we're from Colorado, and I saw you on C-SPAN talking about it, and you said, next time you're in D.C., come to the Library of Congress. I never knew. So he's standing there like, what? But then he got involved, right? So I've been really talking about it. I get a letter, and this was the letter that sent me running around the offices photocopying it, and they know, and it's handwritten. So, well, now you all are from the public arena, so sometimes, when you see a handwritten letter, you're just like, oh, okay. That's not always a good sign. I love being with my peeps. But you know how it is, But this one, Dear Miss Hayden, I have read about the Library of Congress. It is an amazing, and you said this. I see that you have to be 16 to get a reader's card. I am turning 8. And I don't want to wait another 8 years to get a library card from the Library of Congress. We need to talk about this. Okay, I'm like, sincerely, Annam Coffee, San Clemente, it crept around, the zip code. P.S. I will come if you want, if you want to talk some more, whatever. I got up, I said, people, this is what it's about. What about that young reader's card we've been talking about? They want to do something. Can we give them some incentive? What can we do? The youth center, whatever. So we found Adam. We had a conference call with Adam and his parents. Oh, he's and then bless his heart. He's just been named, I forgot the name of the scholar he is, but you could tell, okay? He interviewed, I had the head of our creative department who's working on the card and the youth center, public relations. We were all there talking to Adam. So we were thanking him. I was saying, Adam, I'm so glad we're working on this stuff. And he said, you're welcome. And we were telling him, and then David Mando, he's talking to him about the card and the designs and that. He said, well, I could help, about the design. And then he said, well, when will it be ready? We're like, well, and we had to go through that. He said, well, I can come out, and his dad and mom were on the phone, too. And sure enough, several months, we worked it out when he came to be librarian for the day, just like little Delia, who came, who was just, she's another one. She went with me to record an interview, and she's looking at the script or whatever I'm looking at. We're sitting there, she's there, and I'm there, and I kind of messed up. She said, that's all right. Tried that. And Adam is going to be the first recipient of the card. We're working on that. We're sending him drafts of the design. And his little brother, Ethan, who's 6, was just having a ball. He didn't care. He was just having a good time. But that's the kind of thing. And it helps. And it helps for them to see these young people that are interested in maps. They're interested in things. These kids that say, are there any more cool dudes in history? When we tell them about, and we bring up the Hamilton papers. Because they all know Eliza and all that. They sing the songs, so they know that. So we have the last letter that Hamilton wrote, Dear Eliza, if you get this letter, the interview did not go well. They called dual interviews. Yeah, we have that. So that's the kind of thing in connecting them, yeah. Oh, the other thing that Adam said in the letter was, do you think that kids can't be careful with the materials? You could make some rules. We put the letter up. We put it up, yeah. Adam Coffey, remember that name. He's future whatever, I don't know. He is, president, something.
Well, I just want to say you were my shero.
Oh.
And what book are you reading now, or what books are you reading now?
That's the operative thing. So they're books. Now, I've always been one of those people that buys books because I get interested in the topic and I buy a book. Or I get hooked on the series, Agatha Raisin, and whatever, So I've learned to decorate with books. There is that, you put a thing on them, you do it, so the power. I've been reading more, though, about U.S. history, because where I am now, there's a lot about James Madison and these early people, Frederick Douglass, slavery and Washington and all those kinds of things. So I've been trying to do that. And then on the side, the new Sue Grafton, the why, just for relief. Yeah, there's something about mysteries. Well, I just want to thank you all. I really, really appreciate it and hope that you get to see that kitchen.